Beautiful people, what's up, man? It's your boy Smith. You see my girl right here next to me. Look here. I know first and foremost, man. I'm so old. I got to get used. Welcome to the show. It's Smith the speaker. Hit the subscribe, hit the like, share it with somebody. Right now, what we're gonna do? I know I throw a monkey wrench in because I generally come on Sunday. We're gonna do it different this month of February because I have to be mindful for Sister Steph that our calendars got to collide, that we make sure that she is given the ample space to give to the people what we're trying to give to the people. You feel me? So welcome to the Black Dollar. My wonderful sister, Steph, say what's up to the people.
How y'all doing today? Like Smith said, man, welcome to the Black Dollar. It's time for us to
Ooh,
learn how
man,
we
I
can
love how
just
that sounds.
really revolutionize where we are right now,
Come on
man.
now.
Call
Come
it the
on.
real Black Renaissance.
I love how that sounds, man. Black Dollar, Black Renaissance. The vibe is real. We went
Mm-hmm.
through a lot today. It's raining, folks. If you out there, please stay safe. Don't watch this while you're driving. Wait till you get to the house. It'll be on replay. Don't trip. If we're gonna do it again next Tuesday as well. You know what I'm saying? Before we get started, if you have any questions, shoot them to the link. I'm gonna be quiet. I'm gonna mute my mic so sis can do what she got to do. I'm gonna be monitoring the links if there are any questions that do come in. You know what I'm saying? So, without further ado, Black Dollar, sis, it's your show. Take it away.
I appreciate you, Smith. You are amazing. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Hey, everybody. My name is Stephisha Ecoy Walton, and I'm a licensed financial advisor, amongst other things. I'm a mother. I am, someone who sits on my budget advisory commission in my city. And I'm somebody who was also jaded by money at a really young age, which is why I have a passion for teaching in the way that I do. So this is going to be a 4-part series. So we hear this Monday, next Monday. Excuse me, we hear this Tuesday, next Tuesday, and then, our last 2 sessions will be on Mondays. So just make note of it, all right? But the point of us talking about the Black Dollar as we get into it across all 4 series is really going to be how we as a people, as a Black people, can start to take back the power around our dollar. But before we can even do that, we really have to understand the starting point, kind of where we're starting from, what we've been exposed to, what we haven't been exposed to, what we have access to, don't have access to, the lack of equity in the space regarding money. There's so many different things that, you have to consider. And so for me, I kind of want to just start by pulling this up, and I'm going to share my screen. Let me pull this over this way. And what's going to happen is there's going to be a QR code that pops up on the slides. And on these slides, you should be able to then scan this QR code, and the QR code is going to allow you to interact with me. And the reason I want you to interact with me is because this shouldn't just be you pick up information and never use it, right? Like, I genuinely want to know who you are, what you've been through, so on and so forth. So, as you go through this, I'll get feedback back on my side. Even though I may not be able to chat with you all live, I still will get the feedback by you scanning this QR code. Okay. So the one thing that, I want us to focus on today is really how money works. And I want you to take this from the perspective of thinking about all the roadblocks, the things that you've had to jump over in life, right? All the different things that people have told you to do that should put you in a great financial situation or a great financial space, but maybe it didn't really land you exactly where you want it to be. Have you ever thought about when the last time was that you had basic financial coaching? Like, and I'm not talking about the person that sit down in a break room and show you, like, okay, these are your retirement options, fill them out and send them back by Friday. Like, not that, right? I'm talking about the person that's genuinely gonna sit down with you and put together like a game plan for you, right? Talk to you about exactly how money works. So when it comes down to it, this QR code, please scan it. A little bit about me. Like I said, I'm a licensed financial advisor, and my trajectory started out back when I realized, honestly, I wasn't going to be able to go to med school, even though I got it, even though I got accepted. It was hard for me simply because I had done everything I was supposed to do, and I even did it on scholarship. So I was excited about the possibilities of becoming a doctor and being able to live out that dream without the burden of like all the loans that I would have had for undergrad, right? But little did I know I would need to come up with my own $200,000 to be able to go to medical school. And for me, that was just like a mind blown kind of thing, because I'm like, I didn't have cash, collateral, co-signers. I had none of it. And so it was a dream deferred. It still is a dream deferred, but not permanently if I have something to do with it, right? Why is this important? This is important because I'm changing my family's financial trajectory, and I'm changing the face of our Black dollar to look more like something that belongs in the pocket of my children, right? So my son Carter, he is 10 years old. He has 3 529 accounts, which we will touch on in this series. But a 529 is a college savings account, and you can start them for your children at birth. The same way you could start a retirement account for your child at birth, which we'll get into. But me changing my family's trajectory and really us focusing on our Black dollar looked like me making decisions that were different than my ancestors made and that my elders made, right? And even down to some of the decisions that my parents made, do it differently, right? But there were a lot of decisions that they made that I would do the same, like how they became property owners, and the first house that they bought wasn't the one they lived in, so on and so forth, right? But at this stage in my life, my job is to make sure that I'm giving tools around financial literacy and around financial foundation that's going to help your family thrive. These are the same tools and resources that I use for my family, right? So this is a question that I want to ask you, and I'm going to open it up. So if you with me, feel free to be with me. And if not, when you come back and watch this on the presentation, when you run it back, I want you to tap in. The question is, which would you prefer? Would you prefer a penny that's going to double every day for the next 31 days? Or say, for instance, $1 million cash? Well, some people are probably thinking like, Steph, ain't nobody about to drop $1 million cash in my lap. And quite honestly, a penny that double every single day, it really don't make much sense to me. So I don't know either way, like give me some real world stuff. But what I'm trying to get you to understand from the very beginning is that this part is real world stuff. So delayed gratification is what I need you to think about when you think about your Black dollar and where you spending it at, okay? In this example right here, you could literally take a penny that's going to double every single day for the next 31 days. And it would ultimately bring you to a space where you're going to have over $10 million. You can go do the math. Or you can take the $1 million cash up front. Now, what I encourage you to think about is by the time you got to day 28, you were close to $1 million. By the time you got to day 29, you were at $1 million. Day 30, you over $1 million. Day 31, you already at 10 million, right? Because the day before you were at 5, the day before you were at 2.5, 2.4 by the math. So all I'm saying is delayed gratification allows us to take our Black dollar further. Now, think about it. Where do we normally spend our dollar, right? If we got an extra dollar. Some of us are moviegoers. Some of us like to go to the club. Some of us like to go on vacation, even though we already been on 2 or 3 this year. Some of us like to go retail therapy shopping, right? Where are you spending your Black dollar? So what I encourage you to think about is for every dollar you spend, are you able to put $1 away? Most people are not. But for every dollar you spend, could you put 50 cents away? Most people cannot. For every dollar you spend, could you at least try to put away, starting at 5%, which is 5 cents of that dollar? If you can do that, that 5 cents turns into your delayed gratification pot. And that's part of building the foundation, right? Because part of us being stable is being independent, not being dependent in terms of our finances. We don't want that, right? So when you think about the penny or the $1 million cash, most people chose the $1 million cash. The first time I looked at this exercise, I chose the $1 million cash. And then I had to realize that I had allowed myself to have my emotions take over. And that was something that I couldn't afford, right? Because allowing your emotions to take over in the world of your finances, it will leave you broke. It will leave you high and dry. I want you to consider, like, who taught you about finances, if at all? Like, who taught you? Did you learn at an early age? And if you learned at an early age, good for you. And if you didn't learn at an early age, how long are you going to wait before you start to learn, right? So, the thing that I want you to consider is if you have children now, what are you teaching your children? Are you teaching them about things like debit versus credit? Are you teaching them the power of their single black dollar and how rather than spending it at McDonald's, they can spend it at the grocery store and have leftovers? Are we talking to them about how sometimes thrifting is still G? I don't know where you thrift at, and I don't know how you barter, but the way that I thrift and the way that I barter, I don't know, it bring me prosperity. And I don't feel no way because my ego has nothing to do with my finances. The only way you allow your ego to take charge is when you feel like, man, I gotta have these shoes because everybody rocking, or I gotta have this handbag. Man, I just saw her with it. Or man, my car's so old, it just give me a hard time. And yeah, go where I need it to go, but it's busted. Like my window don't let down. And I get it. I mean, it's not so attractive, but you gotta think about it, man. The trashiest car beats the sportiest walk so long as it can get you to point A to point B, right? So you got to ask yourself, who taught you about how to honor your dollar? Because your black dollar matters. And in session 2 and 3, we're going to get into the stats of your black dollar, how powerful it is. But for now, I just need to really kind of lay the foundation for you, because if I don't talk to you about really building out your financial house and really building it in a way that is going to allow you to be stable, you are going to find yourself frustrated. You're going to find yourself off track. You're going to find yourself in a space, man, I just don't want to do this no more. I knew this was too hard from the beginning. Let me just go ahead and do what I was doing. It's cool. I know I really only got an extra $200-300 at the end of the month. And yeah, I normally spend that on whatever, but at least it make me happy while I'm spending it. I've said it before too. I most certainly have. But then when I pulled myself out of the debt cycle and I got myself into a growth cycle, I started to realize, well, shoot, the only reason I'm in a debt cycle is because I'm paying somebody else first. So when I get my paycheck, I'm paying out the rent, I'm paying out PG&E, I'm paying out the mortgage, I'm paying out the car note, the car insurance, the cell phone bills. I'm paying out all of these corporations, entities, LLCs, but my last name ain't on none of them. And I don't even own no stock in none of them. So you mean to tell me I'm working 40 hours a week, but I'm giving my money away to somebody? And I didn't even take care of me first? Let me ask you something. Of all the entities that you gave money away to, how many of those entities are going to come retire you? How many of those entities are going to send your children to college? And how many of those entities are going to take care of your $400 emergency when it pops up? Because it's not a matter of if, it's when. And more than 90% of Americans cannot afford a $400 emergency. So where is your black dollar going? You need to adjust your priorities. And the priorities, if they're not already, needs to look like when I get my paycheck, I pay myself first. And how am I paying myself? Not by going to Ross or Nordstrom Rack or Sephora or Nike. No. I'm paying myself first by putting money into my 3 fundamental investment accounts, which we're going to talk about. The first one is an emergency fund, because everybody has an emergency. Remember the $400 emergency? The second one is a short-term investment account for your kids' college savings, for you to buy that extra property, for you to start a business, for you to save for that ultimate family vacation, all those things, anything in the next 2 to 10 years. The last one is your retirement account bucket. You're going to have 2 of them. So I'll go over it in details, but you got to pay yourself first to these 3 accounts. So remember the first 5% that I just talked about, that little nickel, you got to find a way to split this nickel between 3 or 4 buckets. But then as your nickel grows and you're not putting away 5%, you're putting away 10% because you're continuously adjusting your priorities and changing your thinking around your money. When you change your priorities, then you're going to change your lifestyle. So your priorities are going to change. And you're going to say, you know what? Man, I can't go buy them shoes in that outfit for this event that's on Saturday. Let me pull something out of my closet. So yeah, you might show up not in the flyest stuff. And yeah, people might look a little different, like, dang, I'm so used to seeing them in the fresher stuff, but okay, no big deal. You're going to find that later on, your lifestyle adjusted in a way that you didn't even imagine because you were so diligent, you were persistent, you were focused, right? So when I think about adjusting my lifestyle, the first thing I'm going to do is start paying myself first. So go back to number 1. So when you get down to number 4, which is adjust your lifestyle, adjust it so that you pay yourself first if you're not doing that yet, okay? And in order for you to do that, you got to change your thinking. Now, when it comes to paying yourself first, some people say, Steph, it sounds good. And yeah, you're right. I should be paying myself first because you're also right again. Nobody's going to retire me. And for the third time, you're right. Nobody going to send my kids to college unless they're an athlete, got an academic scholarship, or they are just, I don't know, the dean's favorite, right? But outside of that, Steph, I mean, yeah, I ain't got no extra money to do what it is that you say you're doing. Well, I don't know, because the manager at McDonald's can still become financially independent. So we got to ask ourselves, are we prioritizing the right things, right? And if we can say yes to that question, then our next thought needs to be, how do I diversify my income? So in order for me to be financially stable, if I only have one source of income, I'm leaving myself to the wolves, because I want you to think about this. There's this thing called the 40-40-40 plan. 40-40-40 plans say you're going to work 40 hours a week. You're going to work for 40 years of your life, and you're going to retire on 40% of your income, right? Now, what if you was at year 38 and they had a 38-year-old who they could pay half what they paying you to do the job? Do you think you're going to make it to year 40 for retirement, or 40% of your retirement? No, because even though you had plans of retiring and staying and being loyal, the company had dreams of you not retiring. Hopefully you won't be loyal, and they won't have to continue to pay you, even though you won't be giving them service in retirement. So a business's bottom line is very different than your bottom line. So when you find yourself in a space being dependent financially on someone else solely, whether it's your employer or the county, it's both the same thing. So ask yourself, well, how do I get by without a job? Well, the person that gave you the job owns the business. So can you learn a skill set that you can then transform into an independent business, maybe a 1099, an LLC, something where you could just be an independent contractor on your own because you have this skill set, and now you earn an additional $1,000 or $1,500 every month. Think about it. If you work at a dog grooming salon and people come in there every single day to get their dogs groomed, what stops you from walking dogs on the weekend? It don't have to be the same clientele, but at least you're already familiar with the industry, right? So think of ways within your space you can earn additional income, and then you got to avoid the credit trap. So what happens is most of us either have multiple credit cards that are already maxed, multiple credit cards that are not being paid on time, or we can't even qualify for a credit card. So we just do payday loans or something, right? And what you got to consider is that all of these are forms of credit that leave you paying more than what you borrowed. So once you get into a debt cycle, it's very hard to get out unless you're intentional and persistent. Think about this. When you have that $400 emergency that we talked about, that will happen, that we did not prepare for, you now putting yourself in a credit trap. Because what's going to happen is you're going to go ask somebody for the money, and they're going to let you borrow it, but now they're going to hound you like a bill collector to get it back. Or you're going to go down to the payday loan place. You're going to borrow $255 because on this day you need it. And then when your next check comes, you're like, dang, I got to give them back $300. Oh, so then you give them back the $300, but then you remember, oh my gosh, I got something that's due in 2 or 3 days, and I can't afford to let this money go right now. I can't. Hey, can I just borrow it back? So then really what you just did was you just walked in and gave them $45 and just kept the $255 in your pocket. Here, take my $45. I'm gonna hold on to your $255 for a little bit longer. And every 2 weeks, you're just going to give them $45 because you need their $255 more. You see what I'm saying? That you can't do that to yourself. Think about how long it takes us to save $225 if we just put away a couple of dollars every now and again, right? And then lastly, you got to set a plan. You have to have goals mapped out in the form of you being able to see it. So I spend so much time on the top 7 simply because if you don't focus on these 7 steps to building a financial house, you are going to find yourself frustrated. And most people give up. and they just become victim to our financial systems, which leave them in the other 98%. That's not the 2% wealthy, okay? So 1 through 7, number 1, pay yourself first. Number 2, adjust your priorities. Number 3, change your thinking. Number 4, adjust your lifestyle. Number 5, earn additional income. Number 6, avoid the credit trap. And number 7, set goals and have a plan, okay? So now that we got that part understood, I need you to now tap into what you can control and what you can't control. Because what happens is typically we look at this top 7 and we're like, you know what? I don't know, that seems a little harder. I can't do that. I can't put away extra money, or I can't eliminate this out of my budget, or I can't do X, Y, and Z. Well, no, some things are a choice. And then some things just require us doing a little bit more work to remove the roadblock, right? So if you think about it, the things that you can control versus what you can't control in your finances are all within reach. So you can't control what's going on in the market. You cannot time the stock market like, okay, maybe I should jump in now and invest. Maybe I shouldn't. No. You can't control what the stock market is going to do. You can't control if you're going to have additional income from our federal government or from the state when you hit retirement age. So you don't know for a fact what's going to happen with Social Security. You don't know for a fact what's going to happen with your job. You don't know what's going to happen with the cost of living and if it's going to keep increasing because of inflation. You have no control over those things. But the things that you do control are, how often are you saving for retirement? Is it just once a month, or is it every single time you get paid, regardless of how often, even if it's every day? Are you really maxing out what you could be saving? So for some of the retirement accounts, college savings accounts, there's maximums we're going to talk about. And those maximums matter because in some spaces, if you max out at your job, they going to match your max. So if you make, say, $10,000 in a month, and let's say, for instance, you contribute, 2% of your paycheck, and your job match you 2% of your paycheck, you just got an extra $200 for no reason, right? So I want you to really consider what you're doing in regards to savings. Is it mattress money? Is it coffee can money? Is it bank account savings money? Is it money market account savings? Is it investment account savings? Which one is it? Because they all have different levels of interest that they provide you, right? So you have the opportunity to decide what your financial future is going to look like based on the decisions you make today. So even down to how you diversify. Some people are very nervous to diversify their portfolio, meaning that they have several different options, right? So when I think about investing and saving, most people say, I'm not investing in the stock market. The economy going crazy. We got a crazy president. I don't want none of that. But what you don't realize is that the stock market is going to perform regardless of who's in office. It's been there since the 1920s. And since the 1920s, the stock market has always consistently, for the most part, check history, average 9 to 12%. So if you can get an average of 9 to 12%, but your bank is giving you 0.1%, which side of the fence do you want to stand on, right? Like, how well do you want to diversify? I want my money at the bank because, at the end of the day, the bank will allow me to keep my money safe. But what I can't do is leave my money at the bank with the expectation of growth. It does not work that way. Okay. So as we keep it rolling forward, these are some of the questions that you can answer if you actually visually watch this show. You'll see them in the presentation. But if you're just listening to me, I want you to follow me through on this exercise I'm about to do. And if you can see it, I want you to really take a screenshot of this and go do it yourself. This is an activity I genuinely need you to do, okay? Because just like the heading says, it's not about what you earn, it's about what you keep. The foundation is all about what you keep. Because when we build a financial house and we put the roof on the top, I ain't even got to the bottom floor yet. I'm just trying to frame the conversation for y'all. But the bottom floor is income protection, right? But you can't afford income protection if we're not keeping track of how much money we make versus what we keep, okay? You won't be able to afford it. So follow me through on this exercise. Let's talk about, and you might need a phone, so pull your phone out so you can use your calculator. Don't be ashamed to calculate numbers. If you care about your money and your budget, your calculator gonna end up being one of your best friends. I promise you. So, okay, I want you to think about how much money you make on an annual basis. Okay, so let's say you make $70,000 a year, right? Now, we know you have not been making $70,000 since the beginning of your career, unless you popped out as something like a doctor or a lawyer, or I don't know, you got the credentials behind it, right? So, for this exercise, I want you to genuinely just take an average of the amount of money you made from the time you started working at 18 till now. So maybe you were making the 15 and $20 an hour, but maybe now you're making $70, $80 an hour. Okay, let's just come up with an average. So maybe that lands you somewhere at, I don't know, $45,000 a year. If that's the case, let's just punch in $45,000 to our calculator, okay? And once we do that, I want you to think about it. Let's say I started working at 18 years old. And right now, let's say I'm 38 years old. That's a span of 20 years, right? So in our next part of the calculation, we're going to take our 45,000 and we're going to multiply it by 20 years. That tells us how much we've earned in the time that we've been working, which in this example, it's about $900,000, right? So I want you to think about it. Over 20 years, if you saw $900,000 run through your hands, how much realistically should you have left over? Bare minimum 10%, right? Maybe even 5. So if it were 10%, you're looking at $90,000. But if it's half of that, even 45,000 ain't that bad, considering that most people have no savings and investments whatsoever, right? But the real fact of the matter is, most people do not have 10% of their lifetime income saved. And that's something that we have to get back to reinforcing, especially around our Black dollar. Because what happens is, I want you to think about it. And then I'm going to bring us back around to our final calculation. I want you to think about what happens whenever someone in the Black and brown community passes away unexpectedly. This is why the foundation of the financial house is important, that income protection, also known as life insurance, which you can't pay for unless you properly manage your money. When it comes to the life insurance piece, you got to consider that when someone in your family passes away, you may not have been financially responsible for that person, but when they pass away, the entire family is financially responsible for that person if they didn't have proper income replacement already in place. So think about this. Someone passes away. You walk into the grocery store, into the corner market, and you see the little can up on the counter or the little plastic bucket that say, please donate. I want you to imagine how many quarters would have to be dropped into that little bucket, or how many dollars would have to be put into that bucket, and for how long before somebody could come up with $15,000 or $20,000 to send a loved one home, or even a basic $3,000 to $4,000 to cremate them. How many quarters would they have to collect in that bucket? And would that little coffee can or the little plastic bucket be enough? The answer is no. So when we look at making $45,000 a year, working for 20 years, and that putting us at 900,000, right? Let's say, for instance, you only have $10,000 saved right now. What you would do is you would take your 10,000, you would divide it by the 900,000 that you already made. And that tells us that our percentage would be 0.01, which is also 1%. So that means if all you saved was $10,000 over the span of making $900,000, you've only saved 1% of your income. When naturally we should be saving close to 10 to 15% of our income. So what I want you to consider is, whenever you get paid, the first step is paying yourself first. Okay. So I want you to go write down this calculation, and I want you to really think about how much have you paid yourself in the time that you've been an employee in this economy, and where have you saved the money that you did decide to save? Because what you got to think about is, at the end of the day, most of us are taken to the bank either at a young age or in our early adult life, and we open up a bank account. And true that our bank account is the place that we go to most often to make sure our money is quote unquote safe, right? But what you got to think about is, banks don't exist for you. They don't exist for me either. They exist for the shareholders that are investing in that bank. What I want you to consider is this: If you look up any bank, for the most part, any major bank, Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, any of them, they're publicly traded on the stock exchange, meaning somebody owns a portion of those companies, right? You, me, anybody can buy stock in those companies, which means that we own it. But it also means that those companies are accountable to us, right? It also means that we should be able to apply a little bit of pressure, but sometimes that pressure comes in the form of we want more dividends, we want more profits, we want to make more money because we own a portion of this company, which also means that that company will begin to charge more for their products and services, maybe cut corners to hit that bottom line. They'll do a whole bunch of things, right? Which means that rather than you benefiting from it, they're benefiting from it. So, why am I sharing this with you? I'm sharing this with you because as you begin to map out paying yourself first, I want you to consider where you put your money matters. So if you put it in a stock exchange, you're probably getting 9 to 12% average. But if you put it in your bank account, you can go look it up online. Any of the major banks is giving you 0.01% on your checkings and your savings account. So your money is not meant to grow for you. That's why when you walk into the bank and you open a new account and you see all them nice banners and everything else, after you open the account, what do they give you? They give you a folder with a whole bunch of documents, at least they used to. Now they come electronically. And they give you a sucker, little lollipop. Have a nice day. We can't wait to charge you with a $35 overdraft fee. See you later. And your $5 account fee if you don't keep a minimum balance. And a this and a that and a. Oh, and by the way, don't forget to go open your credit card on the other side of the bank so that we can get another 29.99% from you because you didn't set up an emergency fund. You use the credit card instead irresponsibly. So where are we putting our money? If it's not in a bank, which you need a bank account for your regular, everyday revolving expenses. But when it comes to an emergency fund, the emergency fund should have 3 to 6 months worth of savings in it, just in case you have an emergency. Whatever your total budget is for the month, that emergency fund needs to have 3 times whatever the total budget for the month is. So if the budget is $2,500 to run my household, that includes rent, gas, electricity, all the basic necessities. I need to have 2,500 times 3 put up. I need to have $7,500 put away because it's a fact. At some point in your life, you might get laid off. You might just decide to quit because you don't like your job, or you might get fired, right? If any of those things happen, your bills still have to get paid. Your bills don't cancel when your job cancels. So the emergency fund is important because it keeps us from getting into that debt cycle. So then you got the short-term account. The short-term account, the next 2 to 10 years, you might want to do some. Even over the next year, you might want to do something, but you could tap into your emergency fund for that. But the short-term account, this is where we really gonna save for the things we're doing in the next 2 to 10 years, kind of like I mentioned earlier, sending our kids to college. You want to buy a rental property. You want to start another business. All these things. You want to pay taxes, right? Maybe you're a 1099 contractor. Let me give you just a small piece of game. Let's say you're a contractor because you already leveled up. I ain't working for nobody. I'm working for myself. Okay, well, if you work for yourself, that means you get every single one of your dollars up front, which really means you should definitely be saving. But it also means that you have to be responsible for calculating your own taxes and paying that out when it comes time to file taxes, right? If that's the case, you got to think about it. How often am I saving money that got to go towards my taxes, and where am I saving it at? Have you ever considered the possibility of saving your taxes on a monthly basis into a short-term investment account that gets a rate of return that would ultimately result in you collecting interest on that money that's sitting? And then when next year comes around and it's time for you to pay your taxes, what if by this point, because you've done this so often and for so long, now to pay your taxes, you're using interest to pay your taxes, not the money that you actively put away? Now we're really moving out of the debt cycle. You see what I'm saying? And on to the other side, to the growth cycle. So short-term savings and investment accounts have multiple purposes, right? But you just have to understand how it works in your particular situation. Then you have long-term savings and investments. This is one of my favorite parts to really sit down and educate families about, because what most people do is rely on their employer. They rely on the 401k through the corporation. the 403b, through the, your school, your nonprofit, your hospital. They depend on the 457 if, the deferred compensation, if they work for the city, the county, or the state. These are things that people are really looking forward to. But what they not understanding and absorbing is that you're looking forward to the money itself. But when it comes time for you to pull this money out, your uncle waiting on the side of you like, give me some. Like, give me some. From the 401k, from the 403b, from the 457, they're all accounts that's funded through your job, whether you're putting the money in there or your job is putting the money in there. We call that tax deferred, meaning you don't get it tax free. We deferring those taxes. So you don't have to pay taxes right now. Because I mean, according to the government, if I put my government hat on, right, which I really ain't got, but if, let's say I put one on and I say, do I want this employee or this worker to pay taxes now when they're not making a whole lot and their tax bracket might be like 12%? Do I want their money now as the government? Or, do I want to wait till they 55, 60, 65, getting ready to retire? Now they've made more money. Now their tax bracket is higher. So when they pull from their retirement account through the job, we get to take more. Okay, cool. We're going to let y'all be tax deferred. Don't worry about paying taxes right now. You're going to see all your money grow in your account. But just remember, when you start taking it out, we need our cut. Now, most people don't understand that your tax bracket is going to go up if you're doing what you need to do in terms of your grind, your hustle. If you are really out here getting your black dollar, your tax bracket is going to go up. And some people like, but don't worry. It's okay. Because although you have those tax deferred retirement accounts, you also got the tax free. So you see 3 buckets up here, but these 3 buckets might have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 accounts associated with these 3 buckets. I might have 4 accounts just in my short-term bucket. I might have 3 kids with a 529 plan each for college savings. And then I might have the account that I save in to pay for my property taxes. Boom. I might have 4 short-term accounts right there. And then I might have another 2 for long-term for my tax-free and my tax deferred, right? That's 6. And then I got my emergency fund. That's 7. So you might have 7 different investment accounts, all serving a different purpose, but working for you while you are asleep. That's how we get free. When you can make money while you sleep, AKA interest, dividends, leveraging your time because you got employees, you winning, right? So you got to make money while you sleep. So the tax-free retirement account is different than the tax deferred. Tax-free says that, you know what? I'm gonna just go ahead and pay taxes up front right now. When I'm putting this money away into the Roth IRA, yep, I'm putting away $100 out of each paycheck or $250 out of each paycheck. Just take the taxes now. Yep. So what's going to happen is my job, they're going to calculate how many hours I worked. Okay. Beth worked. Okay. She worked 40 hours, 80 for the 2 weeks. Okay. Boom. All right. Before we take taxes, let's send money to the 401k. Okay. Boom. Now calculate the taxes. Okay. Boom. What's the final amount? Okay. Beth was $4,000 before taxes. That's where we took the money for the 401k. But then after we taxed it, now Beth is at $3,400. So now we're going to take the money for the Roth IRA and put it away because now the money has already been taxed. So when I put it into the Roth IRA, which is the tax-free retirement account, all the interest that grows from a tax-free tree, which means that all the fruit it bears is also tax-free. So yeah, I'm going to pay taxes on the money that I put in, but on the interest, baby, that's mine. And all I got to do is either A, leave it until I'm 59 and a half years old, or for 5 years minimum, whichever is longer. So you might be 40 years old right now. You can't go get a Roth, fund it for 5 years, and then start to take the money out tax-free. Don't work like that because you're not over 59 and a half years old. But let's say you already 60 and you start a Roth IRA today. You literally need to make sure that you leave it there for at least 5 years if you expect to get the interest tax-free. Don't matter, you already 59 and a half. You got to leave it there for 5 years at least because you're already over the age threshold. So what happens is the way that these accounts interact together is we got our 3 buckets. My emergencies is handled just in case anything happens. No credit cards, no payday loans. My children are taken care of in regards to their college. I'm saving for money for my second property. I'm saving for money for my property taxes. And, I want to take the little family on a Disney cruise vacation in probably about 2.5 years. Not this summer, next, because we got some stuff to do, but I'm working on it. So I got that tidy. These retirement accounts right here. Okay, boom. Got my tax-free, my tax deferred. So I got a whole suite of investment accounts, right? And the best part about it is that I probably didn't even need to put thousands of dollars in them in order to start it. With my firm, you can start an account with as little as $25, depending on which firm you're going to be working with. Sometimes 50, but at the end of the day, we spend that at 7-Eleven, right? So when you think about building out your entire portfolio, I want you to really think, okay, I may not be able to do all of this at the same time, but I can take one step at a time. And that first step just might be, look, Steph, I can't even do all of that, but I could pay myself first. Look, I get paid $700 every week. I'm willing to put away $50 out of my $700 every week, which means that at the end of the month, you would have put away $200, as opposed to just saying, hey, put away $200 every month. Some people are like, what? That's my phone bill, or that's my electricity bill. No, but if you break it down into small, manageable goals, it's a bit better. So the things that you want to make sure you focus on is getting out of debt, build your savings. And that's going to put you on a path that you need to be on in order to reach financial independence. Okay. So paying yourself first is always going to be your first step. So I want you to ask yourself, how many of those 3 categories of accounts do you already have? Are you already taking care of your own emergencies? Are you already putting away for short-term needs? Are you already saving for retirement? And if you are, do you have your 2 buckets for retirement? And if you do, does your job match your 401k? That's something we ain't even talked about. Does the job match what it is that you're putting in? And if so, how much of your match or how much of your contribution do they match? Do they match 100% of your contribution? Do they match 50% of your contribution, 33% of your contribution, 25% of your contribution? How much do they match? And up to what maximum? So they might say, yeah, we match 100% of your contributions, but a maximum 3% of your paycheck, a maximum 5% of your paycheck. So you have to ask yourself, am I thinking about these things? And if I'm thinking about these things, now am I starting to do these things, right? So the next piece of this in our last 15 minutes or so is back to the idea of delayed gratification, which is what I started off chatting with y'all about tonight, right? So delayed gratification says that I'm going to use time and consistency to be my best friend. I'm going to use time and consistency to get me to exactly where I need to be, right? So I'm going to talk you through a visual that's up on the screen right now for those who are watching live. But if you're just listening to me, just follow me. It genuinely does pay for you to start investing early. And the reason being is because for every single year that you do not invest, that's a year worth of compounding interest you will never ever see. For example, if I put away $1 today and my interest is 10%, next year I'm gonna have $1.10. And then 10% on that is going to give me 11 cents in interest for the next year, right? So now I got $1.21. And then the next year is going to give me 10%. So now I got 12 cents in interest. For every year I'm investing, my compound interest will continue to increase. So I'm not just going to keep getting the same dime every single year. I'm going to get a dime. I'm going to get 12 cents. I'm going to get a dime and a nickel. I'm going to get 20 cents, 2 dimes. I'm going to get a quarter. I'm going to get a quarter and a nickel. And I'm going to just keep on moving up till my cents become dollars, right? So why is that important? It's important because when we know how compound interest affects our future, we start now in today's time, right? So let's imagine we've all had $1,000 at one point or another. I don't care what you say. You might not remember, but you've had $1,000, whether it came from your paycheck, whether you graduated and got a whole bunch of gifts, whether you got an extra bonus, whether you found a wallet, whether you want a scratcher. Everybody at one point or another has had $1,000. And if you haven't, you've had 100. So what I want you to think about is this. If you took that $1,000 and you invested it in our economy at what the economic average is, which is 9 to 12%, you could really do some you could really do some damage, right? So if you started, let's say for instance at birth, and you went all the way to age 67, and you were putting away just that $1,000 one time, never added another dollar to it, at 9%, your $1,000 would grow to $406,466 without ever putting away another dollar. But here's the flip side to that. Compound interest is your best friend, but it can also be your worst enemy in regards to you not taking advantage of it. So let's say, for instance, you had the idea to put money away when your child was born. Like, yeah, I'm going to start them off right. But then, as it happens in life, things always happen, right? So the first year they were born, the car blew out. The second year, you had to move apartments. The third year, maybe you had a bad roommate. The fourth year, you just forgot all about it. So now they're 16 years old. And you like, I got to start sometime. So you put the $1,000 away. By waiting that 16 years, every single year you didn't put money away was a year worth of compounding interest you never saw, plus every year that came after that, that would have compounded on top. So you miss out on 16 years, but it actually made you miss out on $300,000, because the difference between starting at birth and starting at age 16 is $406,000 versus $96,000. So you got to ask yourself, is it really worth waiting? We call that the high cost of waiting. When you wait too long, when you have analysis paralysis, where you don't know if I should go forward or backwards, you miss out. And if you're the person that maybe say, for instance, I wasn't analysis paralysis, Steph, I just didn't have a strong beginning. And so I had to catch up first, which happens sometimes. And I'm just now starting at age 40. I don't know what to do, but all I got is $1,000. This is what I'm putting away. So you put your $1,000 away at 40 years old. And by 67, you like, it's only going to be $11,000. I want you to ask yourself, if you are within that age range right now, 35, 40 years old, and you don't even have $1,000 saved, ask yourself, at age 67, is $10,000 going to retire you? The hard answer is no. So you having $1,000 today is not the same as you having it when your child was at birth or 40 years ago, which means you have to put more away in order for you to get caught up, right? So this is what it looks like, y'all. And this is what it sounds like and feels like for us to really make our finances like a conscious thought, right? So if you start soon, you win. Last slide, I said everybody didn't have $1,000. And I said, okay, maybe not. Maybe you've had $100 though, which I know for a fact everybody has. So if you've had $100 and you put $100 away every single month at 9%, let's say you start at age 25. By the time you get to 67, that's $566,000. But if you wait 1 year, the high cost of waiting says that you are giving up $49,770. So ask yourself, is it worth waiting a year? Easy answer is no. What if you waited 5 years? Instead of getting $566,000, $567,000, you now looking at $357,000. You just lost $209,000 because you waited. And let's say, for instance, you ain't got no choice, but you wait till age 40. At least with your $100 a month, I mean, you could save an extra $137,000, $138,000. That's not shabby when it comes to adding on to your retirement. Maybe this is what you're saving outside of your job, and you just got wind of this education. So you're like, you know what? I ain't know it before, and I'm not going to kick myself in the butt over what I didn't know. But now that I know better, I'm going to do better. So now that I know I could take $100 a month and put it away, let me start. Because I understand that if I would have started 15 years ago, I could have had 566. And I also understand that I've already lost out on $430,000. But what I'm not willing to do is go another 15 years and lose out on another $430,000. Because in the next 15 years, I could already be 55 on my way to retiring, right? And so, what you have to ask yourself is, what are you currently doing in terms of your financial practices? Are you shooting yourself in the foot by making yourself wait? And if you are, what could you do to change that? Because whether it's $100 or whether it's $20, you can have a significant impact on your future. We spend $20 at 7-Eleven all the time. We spend $20 just walking out the house, probably on bus fare, transit, gas, whatever it is. And yeah, those things are a necessity. But sometimes we go get the gas and walk inside and we get a soda, a bag of chips, and a scratcher too, right? So when you think about it, I want you to put yourself in a space of, I may not have $100, but I got 20. I may not have $500, but I got 40. Whatever it is that you have, be willing to pay yourself first. So that way you can start to work on those 3 fundamental accounts. And then once you have those 3 fundamental accounts, we can then start to say, okay, now that I'm not on shaky ground in regards to my personal finances, now I can actually start building the house upward. And when you build the house upward, you're eventually going to get to a place where at your roof is going to be the protection of everything. And we'll talk about that later, right? But in order for you to build the entire house, you have to understand where all the nails and boards have to go. There's no way you could build a financial house by putting in the walls before you put in the foundation. You can't put the windows in before you put the walls in. It all has to come in good timing. So what we're going to start our next session with next week is this right here, the rule of 72. But I want to give you a precursor of it because it's going to help you understand how compounding interest works. So in short, the rule of 72 says, and if you didn't listen to nothing else I said on this entire segment tonight, listen to this, write it down, take a picture. I don't care where you put it, do something with it, okay? The rule of 72 says that I can take the number 72, I can divide it by any interest rate that I'm given, and that will tell me roughly the number of years it's going to take my money to double. So if you pull out your calculator and you do some simple math with me, I love this calculator. I'm telling y'all, simple math. I walk into the bank. The bank is so excited to see me because I don't have an account with them yet, but I got $10,000 I'm walking in with. They see that $10,000, but they say, you know what? We just gonna give you a regular savings account. Oh, you know what? Nah, let's do high yield. We gonna send you to the other side of the bank. And they say, sit down with the banker. And you like, okay. So you sit down with the banker. The banker says, we're gonna give you 3%. You're gonna do so much better than the checkings and savings that's on the other side of the bank. So you sitting back, sucking on your lollipop. Yup, I'm about to win. My money about to grow. What you're not realizing is that the rule of 72 says if I type in the number 72 to my calculator and I divide this by that 3% they're going to give me, so divided by the number 3, it's going to give me 24, which you see right here, right? 24 years for my money to double. It's going to take 24 years for my 10,000 to turn into 20,000. Now, how do you feel about waiting a quarter century for your money to double? I wouldn't want to wait that long. So ask yourself, well, Steph, if the bank gives me 3%, where do you expect for me to find 6%? Because I really don't know where other financial instruments and stuff are. Well, remember we talked about your job and how you got a retirement account? Those accounts, typically, when you choose them, you walk into your break room, you pick the account, and then you wrap it all up, turn it in, and you don't revisit it till next year, right? But in those options, you can choose how you want your money invested. And based on how you choose to invest it will help determine what your rate of return is. So there are places you can get 6, 7, 8%. And then even outside of your job, you can get that 6, 7, 8%. But even at the 6%, your money gonna double every 12 years because 72 divided by 6 is 12. And over to our last column, which is what I'll wrap with for tonight, your 72 divided by 12% on an investment that you're getting will work out to your money doubling every 12 years, or excuse me, every 6 years. So when you look at your money doubling every 6 years, I just want you to imagine this scenario. You walk into the bank with your 10 grand. They send you over to the high yield savings account banker. They set you up all nice and pretty. They send you out with your pack of papers and your lollipop. You ride off into the sunset. You are 20 years old. You come back at 68 years old. It's been 48 years and you let your 10 grand sit because they promised you that they were going to take care of you. But remember, they only gave you 3%. So your 10 grand grew to 40,000 for you. But what they didn't tell you is where they actually had your money sitting. Your money was sitting in the economy. Your money was sitting in an account that was getting 9 to 12%. So although you got kicked back $40,000, they actually made $2.56 million on your money because they guaranteed you 3% because they knew that they could do better. Anytime someone guarantees you something in a financial space, it means they know for a fact that they can get better or get more, which allows them to give you whatever amount you agreed to. So what we need to wrap our brains around is, how do I ultimately do what it is that they're doing with my money? And at the point that you can do that, you win. So with that being said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to come back full circle to you all. And I'm going to say, I hope I didn't water hose you too much with too much information, but I hope you can take just at least a small piece of something that inspires you so that you can come back next week and learn some more. Smith, talk to the people.
Man, I think I ran out of paper taking notes. Sis, I can't thank you enough. So I wrote a couple things down. I just want to follow up and I want to be mindful of everyone's time. Thank you for joining us. This is one of 4 parts, man. You can't get this game nowhere else, man. They're going to charge you. You know what I'm saying? Sis is giving it away for. I didn't say nothing. I love this. I didn't have to say nothing. Building. So the title of the undertitle of what I've given, because young people know the bag. That's all we hear about is the bag. They don't know how to sustain what's in the bag. So what Sis just gave you is the building blocks of sustaining the bag and keeping the good stuff in the bag and avoiding the bad stuff that's in the bag. So really quick, 3 things. Sis talked about the payday loans. On an average, they run about 400 APR, payday loans, 400 APR. They charge you about, $10 to $30 for every 100 that you borrow. That's a lot of money. I don't care where you at. I need my $10 and $30.
Right.
She talked about life insurance. You see a lot of GoFundMe stuff out there. Excuse me. I don't know what happened. GoFundMe is charging about 3% for a transaction fee and 30 cents on the dollar for every donation. So if someone charges you or gives you $50, you're not getting the whole 50. And then the last one, credit cards, which I hate. Their minimum APR is about 20.79% currently, and their max is 27.73. I hate credit cards. Stay away from them. So again, there you go for tonight. Our first series on the black dollar. It is crucial that we understand in this time that we're at about building tomorrow and sustaining legacy. We have to do it the hard way. I don't care what's going on. I don't know what happened. I don't know. I was fine. Now all of a sudden I got.
Look, that's okay. That's because you got some super. Look, don't worry about nothing. Cough it out, get it out, and while you do that, I'm gonna make sure I tell everybody online. Don't be taking your coins to Coinstar either, because they're gonna charge you almost 13% to cash in your coins. So while Smith is going over all the different ways we get got in society, add that to your list. No more Coinstar. You better go get you them old rollers that your grandparents used to have.
Man, see, look, free game. And I say this and I'm shutting up. I know we're at 7:02. Listen, we are. I don't care what you say. Where we're at, where we are living in a time where money is power. We have to control our dollar. There's a lot of talk about a lot of things going on. I don't care where you look, what kind of history major you are, what kind of financial major you are.
Right.
There are certain people in this a head start on finances. Their generational wealth has doubled and doubled and doubled and doubled and tripled and tripled and tripled. We are just now getting in tune to the dollar and how beneficial it is to us. Okay. This is why we're doing this. This is why Sis is taking her time to do this. I'm going to shut up after this. This is February 4th. Understand Rosa Parks and what she did. She was born in Tuskegee on this day. Okay.
Come on.
She made a conscious decision about morals, ethics, and her character. What she did not understand, and maybe she did, but the financial impact of what she did, the financial impact of what she did by far transcends her being. So understand, sometimes you got to stand up for your character and stand up on 10 toes, and it ain't about money sometimes. And in the long run, it could be definitely about the money. Sis, thank you so much. We will see you next Tuesday, February 11th. At 6 p.m. People, thank you for joining. You can watch this on a replay if you couldn't watch it now. Again, subscribe, like. We'll see you next time, beautiful people. You know I love you.
See y'all.